everyone. Hope you all doing well. So I watched a really interesting interview. Dr. Steve Turley interviewed Daniel Miller, who is the leader of Texit, as they're calling it now, or the Texas Succession, and very well-reasoned guy. I mean, he's not a guy drawing from the hip or shooting from the hip. He's kind of got a lot of this stuff figured out. And I guess he's been doing this for 25 years. And he's pretty much devoted his whole life to it. And now that a representative has put a bill on the floor and the Texas legislature has to vote on it, his feeling is it will have to pass and go to a referendum for the people on November 30th if it does pass. He says, who knows if it's going to pass or not. But he did say the horse is out of the barn, and any representative that votes against this probably is not going to be reelected, which tells me it's probably going to be passed. And he feels that if referendum does go to the people, that the people will pass it and Texas will succeed. Now, he's thought out a lot of stuff, like will the U.S. attack Texas comes to bear. He made an interesting point. Zogby in 2013, I believe it was, polled a bunch of service members and asked them, do states have a right to leave the Union? And 50% of them said yes. So you're going to have a split military right there. And, I don't think a lot of people in the United States military are going to go down there and carpet bomb Walmart in Texas. And that was the words he used, but I agree with them words. And he said, this isn't the 1860s. This is different now. And to a point, it's true. They will have to be let go peacefully. But the ramifications of Texas leaving are a heck of a lot bigger than Texas. Because if Texas passes a referendum to leave the Union, first of all, let me give you a little background. It's something that very few people know or fail to understand. First of all, until the 14th Amendment, there was no such thing as an American. You were either a Texan, Virginian, Ohioan, New Yorker, whatever it may be. The reason the South rose up against the 14th Amendment, they passed the 13th Amendment no problem. 13th Amendment was to get rid of slavery, free all the slaves. They had no problem passing that. But the 14th Amendment, basically what it did, it changed our very form of government. And it changed a compact of states from a general government, as they used to call it, to a federal government, which is a much different thing and gives the federal government much more power over the states that they weren't supposed to have when the original Constitution was signed in 1787. Now, if you look back, now the southern states had to rewrite their constitutions after the Civil War, but if you look back at the original constitutions, every state that joined the Union, I think up until the Civil War, but There may have been a few that didn't, but for the most part, had a clause in there that they could withdraw from the Union whenever they wanted. And that was clearly understood when Massachusetts was going to do it in 1820s. Jefferson Davis even took to the floor of the Senate and said, we hope that how did he put it? Our friends from Massachusetts don't do this, but if they do, it is their right, and may they go in peace. Of course, Massachusetts forgot that 25 years later when the South tried to leave. But again, this is going to be much bigger than Texas. It's going to start a ball rolling. And, Oklahoma and Texas are sort of like two brothers that are always fighting, but they're still joined at the hip. I guarantee you if Texas succeeds, Oklahoma will go with them. And the same goes for Louisiana. If Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana succeed, you're probably going to see, I think Kansas, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida. Georgia's gotten so many Yankees down in there, I don't know what Georgia's going to do. Same way with North Carolina. South Carolina will, but I think you have to have a continuous border to do this. And if Georgia doesn't pass it, I don't think South Carolina can. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Tennessee, I'm not sure. Kentucky, I'm not sure. I think West Virginia would do it, but again, they may be left out on an island, which is a shame as a West Virginian because, I'm a West Virginian first and an American second. I make no bones about that. I was born and raised in West Virginia, and that's my state. And I will be a citizen of whatever country West Virginia joins. And then you're going to see, I think, Wyoming, North, South Dakota, Montana, and then there's going to be a big push for rural Nevada because rural Nevada is really getting fed up. Every rural county now, which means every county except Washoe and Clark, which are Reno and Las Vegas, have balked on the gun laws that they passed when they took control. The Democrats took control in 2018, and have balked now against the governor's COVID-19. And they're right to do so because rural Nevada is not being affected. The problem with COVID-19 in Nevada is Las Vegas and Reno. It's not all these other towns. I guess now I know one person, maybe two, that have gotten it. And who knows if they even got it. They didn't have any symptoms. They just tested positive. Now we know the WHO's come out and said, stop testing. 50% of these tests are false positives. But you're going to Northern California, and I'm not talking Sacramento, I'm talking north of Sacramento, rural Nevada, eastern Washington, eastern Oregon, and Idaho all are very, very similar in mindset. And they're going to want to succeed and form their own thing. And I think they would form with Texas in that, but again, I think you have to have a continuous border. I think they would be very, how do I want to say this? very acceptable to both joining. And I think that's where the federal government would probably step in, because it would basically cut the nation off in half. And you would have Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona would want to go, but I don't think there's any room for them to go unless they go on their own, or possibly join rural Nevada, California. And, you know, it's going to be very interesting to see. You know, Western Maryland has been trying to succeed for Maryland and join West Virginia for decades now. And now, after these crazy nut jobs took office in Virginia and gained power and voted all these gun laws in, all these counties became sectionary counties. The governor of Nevada, governor of West Virginia actually come out and said, come join us. So I think you're going to see a lot of counties in Virginia, and counties in Maryland, the western counties, because they have far more in common with West Virginia than they do in Maryland's case, Baltimore, or Virginia's case, the greater DC area. There's going to be a lot of repercussions, and you're going to see a lot of movement of people. You know, my son asked me a while back, Dad, do we go to Texas or do we stay and fight for rural Nevada? And, you know, it was a very good question, and one I hadn't thought of, because my first answer was we go to Texas. But I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. And I think they're going to have a real problem if they try and do anything, meaning the federal government, because you're going to have a lot of people that are going to resist. And I don't think it's something you can stomp down with an army. We got to keep our eyes open on this, folks, though, because if Texas does pass it, things are going to change in a hurry, and we have to be prepared. All right, thank you. Oh, by the way, I linked the interview in the comments section, or not comments, the description. So it takes a little time to watch the interview. But this guy's thought out Social Security, federal retirement, all this stuff. So it's an interesting interview, and it's worth your time. All right, thank you all. Have a good day.